Welcome to another episode of the Voices for Voices TV show and podcast. I am your host, founder, and executive director of Voices for Voices, Justin Allen Hayes. Thank you for joining us, whether you're tuning in on video, on TV, or podcasts on the audio side. We thank you. We're well into the 155 plus episodes, and we couldn't do this without your love, your support. So thank you for that. This episode is part 2 of the conversation that we started last week with attorney Ned Pillersdorf, who the tagline of his law practice is, "We represent underdogs." He represents clients throughout the eastern half of Kentucky in both civil and criminal cases. He started as a public defender in the 1980s. And what we didn't cover on the last episode is he's also highly active in the eastern Kentucky community and helped found the Floyd County Animal Shelter with his wife, Court of Appeals Judge Janet L. Stumbo. And he also coached in the Prestonburg Little League for over 20 years and was the head coach of the David School varsity high school basketball team for 5 years. Over 400 jury trials, among other awards. In 2001, named the Criminal Defense Attorney of the Year from the Kentucky Association of Criminal Defense Attorneys. And Judge Ned Pillersdorf and Judge Stumbo had 3 daughters, Sarah, Nancy, and Samantha Pillersdorf. As far as what his practice, what they focus on is criminal law, civil rights, personal injury, property injury, employment law, and he is an incredible person because as you saw and heard in week 1, he is not just focused on his clients. He's focusing on how he can affect change on a bigger scale than just the clients, and he's focused 100% on the clients. But kind of that secondary goal is that overarching goal is really how we, as an organization, really, when we saw a few episodes of, Vinnie Politan Investigates and closing arguments on Court TV, the fact that he was just being so candid in sharing, and he had that and has that willingness to want to help others, and we agree from our organization that's really the core of us as humans and as an organization. What Ned got into a little bit in last week's episode, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into, and those are really two areas. So the first being negative stereotypes of Appalachia, the individuals, plus the big Conn, which you may have seen or heard on Apple's platforms. So Ned, thank you for hanging with us for a second episode and joining us.
I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. So you want to jump into the negative stereotypes about Appalachia and how that impacts things?
The really where that just hit home to me, I live and practice in Floyd County. I've been here 43 years. And while I'm not a native of the area, I did marry a coal miner's daughter who I love to add the fact that she was the first woman elected to the Kentucky Supreme Court. And Janet Stumbo, and she did resign after a 26-year career to basically join in, for lack of a word, the Conn battlefield, which is a dark cloud's been hanging over Appalachia for, I guess we're coming up on our 10-year anniversary. To briefly get your viewers up to speed, Eric Conn probably had one of the biggest Social Security practices in the country. If you watch the documentary, The Big Con, or on Apple TV or their podcast, it's an amazing story, and they did, and I recommend the podcast and the documentary. What Conn did, and his crimes were not that complicated. He got into a bribery arrangement with a Social Security judge in Huntington, West Virginia, and for 7 years they met halfway between my home county of Floyd and Huntington, West Virginia, at a gas station in Louisa, Lawrence County, Kentucky. And I think it was $9,000 a month he was bribing the judge. This eventually resulted in Conn being indicted and charged. At one point, he cut off his ankle bracelet and went to Honduras, and it became a national news story. More important to me than Conn, who I just regard as a narcissist, was how the Social Security Administration reacted. Memorial Day 2015 is to steal a phrase, a day that will live in infamy. Got a phone call as I was driving home that day from a local lawyer. He said that one of our clients, who was a Social Security recipient, had received a letter immediately suspending his benefits.
Wow.
And on the other line was a phone call from the Bill Leastep, a Lexington Herald Leader reporter, saying he understands that at least 900, maybe more, former Conn clients, mostly in Appalachia, were all getting suspension of benefits, immediate suspension of benefits letters that day. That's 900 people losing their benefits. And I'll never forget, kind of the defining moment to me is when I got back to the lawyer and I said to him, it's not just our client, Leroy Burchett, who he's calling about.
Yeah.
The number is 900. And he immediately said, without hesitating, oh, Ned, there'll be suicides. And 10 days later, the suicides started. Leroy Burchett, someone I knew, shot himself in front of his family, lost his benefits. He was had significant mental health issues. And then I think the next day, a young lady from Martin County, Kentucky, which is on the West Virginia border, she was actually driving to my office, pulled off on the side of the road, put a gun in her mouth and pulled the trigger. And I'm chairman of the board of the David School, the school for low-income kids in Floyd County. We were having a meeting, and I couldn't figure out, why is a state police detective here at a meeting of the David School? And he said, Ned, I need to talk to you. And he said, I just came from a suicide scene. And he said, that woman got one of those letters. Well, the letter was from the Social Security Administration. And the history of Conn was, before Conn got indicted, it was actually during the week of one of the Senate shutdowns. But they had a hearing about Conn. Conn took the Fifth Amendment. And the leader of the charge was Oklahoma Senator Tom Coburn. He was a doctor, well-respected member of the Senate. And he was kind of leading the charge about what Conn was doing. This was actually at a time before Conn was even indicted. But Coburn did, I don't want to shock your listeners, he did this thing called lying. And he immediately said, without any justification, all of the Conn clients were in on the scam. There was zero evidence any Conn client was in on a scam. Eric Conn never told a single client, by the way, I'm driving up to Lawrence County, Kentucky today to bribe the judge. That never happened. Right. But he slimed the people. And as a result, the Social Security Administration began these oppressive hearings. And this is truly a retreat back to the days of Bill McCarthy, guilt by association. Every hearing started out saying, you're a former Conn client because of your association. Any evidence Conn submitted is automatically inadmissible. And there's a secret finding of fraud you can't challenge because Conn was your lawyer. Remember, these people are totally innocent. Many of them operate with significant intellectual and mental health issues. And these oppressive hearings went on. They were mass hearings. We had about 1,800 hearings. We had to scramble around and find volunteer lawyers. The reason we had to find volunteer lawyers is the way you get paid in the Social Security cases, you can get some of the back pay. Well, Conn already got the back pay. The good news was we found, through the wonderful work of Alpha-Red Legal Aid and other organizations, NASCAR, this was the biggest volunteer mobilization in the history of this nation. We found lawyers to do more than 1,000 hearings. These hearings are not walking over the courthouse and getting a reckless driving charge reduced to speeding. These are complex hearings with clients with mental health and intellectual challenges. So we had these hearings, and then we had a bunch of good news. The federal courts, we argued, they have brought back the days of Joe McCarthy. And we talked about Milo Radulovich. And Milo Radulovich, in the history of this nation, he was in the Air Force, and during the Joe McCarthy days, arguably the beginning of the end of the Joe McCarthy era is when courageous CBS journalist Edward R. Murrow said, they are putting Milo Radulovich through a hearing based on secret evidence in an envelope that neither he nor his lawyer can see nor challenge. The Conn clients got those same manila envelopes. And we had the wonderful opinion called Hicks v. Colvin. The Sixth Circuit agreed with Judge Thapar. Judge Thapar, he was then the U.S. District Judge. He's now on the Sixth Circuit in Cincinnati. He wrote a remarkable opinion denouncing these hearings, and the first sentence resonated. He said the former Conn clients have been afforded less rights than al-Qaeda terrorists. I learned how to spell al-Qaeda as a result of all this. And what Thapar was talking about was there was a famous Hamdi case where Hamdi was an al-Qaeda guy captured on the battlefield. Did he have the right to see and challenge the evidence against him? And after we won in the Sixth Circuit, the SSA did not stop. They challenged it in the Seventh Circuit. We won again. I went to South Carolina and won the Gary Kirk case, which I'm proud of because the judge, in a published opinion, praised the Volunteer Lawyer Network. And we eventually won in every appellate court. But what fueled all this? Was this negative anti-Appalachian stereotypes? Beverly Hillbillies? Are the people of Appalachia viewed as lazy, shiftless people, quick to get on the draw? Here's my question. If Conn's clients, let's say Conn had represented a bunch of investors and the Securities Exchange Commission was going to put them through hearings, would they have gone after those clients as relentlessly as they went after the Conn clients? We litigated against them for 9.5 years, and they would never negotiate with us. And we've been kind of on a winning streak toward the end. And, looking back, did we make some decisions right, made some decisions wrong? I've beaten myself up. When this first started, we did not convey hard enough and important enough that the former Conn clients should not represent themselves. In Appalachia, we have a lot of very religious people who think if they pray a lot, they'll be fine. And if I had to do it all over again, and this is on me, and I regret this and have remorse, we should have been more aggressive in telling these people not to represent themselves because it's a disaster. I ended up, if you watch a documentary, putting hundreds of signs in front of the SSA office, doing a little criminal trespassing, I guess. Don't represent yourself. What we did right, we participated in podcasts, a documentary, and I don't know if this was related or unrelated, but a year or two ago when Apple TV was heavily promoting the documentary, The Big Conn, they actually flew me and some other people out to Hollywood for a premiere, which was interesting. Yeah. And I remember the plane stopped in Salt Lake City. We were changing planes. And suddenly, the SSA wanted to talk settlement, which had never happened in 9 years. And you can't convince me that the premiere of the documentary and the publicity didn't produce a change in strategy. Now, to be clear, no one from the SSA ever said, hey, Ned, that documentary kind of bothered us. But after that, we got a settlement for the Forgotten 500. And this, once again, goes back to the Appalachian stereotypes. This is really for more of the legal issue. After the first round, we won about half the cases. But we had 750 people lost their benefits. And after we won the Hicks case, declaring these mass hearings unconstitutional, we stuck a stake in Joe McCarthy's heart. 250 people got their benefits back because they had active cases in federal court. How about the other 500? The SSA said they all defaulted. They all got letters saying you had so many days to file appeals, and for whatever reason, they didn't. Well, here's some law I learned that I did not know. And by the way, I had help from Wilmer Hale, one of the most prestigious law firms in the country. That law firm is still a former U.S. Supreme Court law clerks. It's Robert Mueller's firm, by the way.
Okay.
By the way, they were heroic in co-counseling with me. But what about the other 500? There's something called the American Pipe Doctrine. Basically, if there's a pending class action, that tolls everyone's statute. So we argued they didn't default. And we eventually got a wonderful settlement with the Social Security Administration. We got 90% of what we wanted. And we're still trying to get the word out to these 500 people. And I say that, get the word out. You know, we've been representing this volunteer network for 10 years. We don't know who these almost 4,000 people are. The Social Security Administration will not give us their names and addresses, citing Social Security confidentiality. So the settlement with the forgotten 500, I want to know who they were. Let them know. The settlement was wonderful. Here's what it was. These 500 people, the people we've been most worried about, the people who've been talking about killing themselves, they're homeless, if they simply ask for a new hearing, they get their monthly benefits back now. And if they win their new hearing, they get 7, 8 years of back pay. That's 6 figures.
Yeah.
The problem was, and this goes back to the nature of Appalachia, how do we get hold of these 500 people? Well, we held press conferences, did social media, and once again, we asked the SSA for their names and addresses, and the answer was no.
Oh.
So we probably got hold of maybe 200, hopefully 250 of the 500. And these are the people who live up in hollers, probably have mental health challenges. And those hearings, by the way, are going on now.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, how successful were we for the former Conn clients? Here's what the scoreboard says. They targeted 3,800 people, thanks to recent courageous action by SSA Commissioner O'Malley, who I think unfortunately just resigned last week. He's canceled thousands of hearings, canceled overpayments of tens of millions of dollars. Today, we have about 400 former Conn clients who have lost their benefits. Now, we have reached out to our great governor, Andy Beshear, who's been a great ally. Please contact President Biden before you go out of office. These 400 people never should have lost their benefits.
Right.
They were never involved in the conspiracy with Conn. And as I say, was all of this fueled by anti-Appalachian stereotypes, Beverly Hillbillies? That's my opinion.
Yeah.
The SSA, they would talk about fraud. They'd talk about saving the government money. But I just can't believe that if Conn's clients had not fit the Appalachian stereotype mold, none of this would have ever happened. We're still trying to help these people. And like I said, just in an earlier podcast, to me, yes, I wanted to help the Conn clients I represented in front of me, but there's a bigger picture here. Did Tom Coburn, influential senator, start this smear saying all the Conn clients are involved in a criminal conspiracy? Did that motivate that bureaucracy to come at these people relentlessly to the point where Judge Tapar said they were treated worse than Al-Qaeda terrorists? Judge Tapar is no liberal. He's Mitch McConnell's favorite judge, Republican. And you know, one of the last things, by the way, Commissioner O'Malley did that I wish had received more publicity. For the first time, after 9.5 tough years, he wrote a letter to Senator McConnell and said, oh, by the way, the Conn clients were innocent. He said they were unwittingly drawn in. That's the first time in 9.5 years, pardon my language, we stopped with all this SSA crap that they were somehow Conn's criminal co-conspirators or in on this scam, as the late Senator Coburn infamously said.
Wow. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, talk about Social Security Administration. That's part of our nation, and to have people being taken advantage of like that is just it's unheard of, and obviously shouldn't be happening. And the fact that, like you said, you're able to bring together as many attorneys to help just shows how many other people are in it. And like you said, those hearings weren't short hearings, that they were complicated, and so these attorneys knew kind of what they were getting into, and it just, like you said, you talk about treated worse than somebody in Al Qaeda. I mean, that's really saying it's saying a lot, and like you said, if the individuals didn't fit that Appalachia stereotype, would that have occurred? And just as ironic as that is, with you flying out to Hollywood and stopping in Utah and then getting that call, that it's very very interesting, and I think we all can agree that was probably somehow related to the premiere and that happened, and we're seeing a lot more of how the media and these Netflix specials on certain cases, and they're getting revived, and sometimes that's part of what it unfortunately takes, is the spotlight needs to get shown. It needs to go from a flashlight to a spotlight, and thank you for that work that you have and you're continuing to do there, because that's huge. And working with or against the government and having all that, and saying being told that the confidentiality, they can't give you the names, and to be able to contact those individuals. I mean, that right there is that's a heinous thing to do. We're in America, and you should be able to get a hold of these individuals, and that's just hard to even think about. Having my parents draw on Social Security, and if they were impacted, like the individuals you have and you are represented, I couldn't imagine how are they going to continue on, and to have you and the team of attorneys. I think that's huge, and shows a big heart too of kindness, and that's just amazing. Could you touch on, we're getting close to the end of the second episode, on judge recusal for certain cases where there's the ethics side. If there's a certain case or certain topic that comes up, that usually judges will say, hey, I'm going to recuse myself from this particular case for association with some people involved, and what recusal means, and then maybe lastly just touch on when Judge Mullins, like you said, I think it was last week, you said there was a 1-minute hearing, and you said, with all due respect, I think you should recuse yourself. And when he said no, that how rare that really is.
Yeah, sometimes when you represent a client, you need to ask a judge to recuse. Mm-hmm. You're a lawyer, you want to get along with judges, but you've also, more importantly, got an obligation to your client. And Sabrina did have a criminal case after we filed the lawsuit. Mm-hmm. And I asked Judge Mullins to recuse. And in fairness to Judge Mullins, he recused, but he did. If you look at the transcript of the video, he indicated to me that he didn't think he needed to recuse. He assured me he could be fair and impartial. And this is just me subjectively. Mm-hmm. I felt uncomfortable more with his demeanor than what actually he said. And I declined to actually go back and practice in that court after that. Now, Judge Mullins isn't here today, but that's just me subjectively. He did I got the impression he did not appreciate me asking him to recuse. But when you're an attorney, quote Spike Lee, sometimes you got to do the right thing. And Sabrina was facing felony charges. She eventually got sent to prison. And this was an important hearing. She was actually charged with escape. The escape was she was off the ankle bracelet.
Oh my gosh.
Well, she was off the ankle bracelet because she cut off the sex with the bailiff, the guy, the administrator. So it was an important hearing.
Yeah.
And in fairness to Judge Mullins, he did recuse. It made me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And that's probably all I need to say about that.
Yeah. 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 I think that sums it up. Well, Ned, we're at the end of our second episode. I just want to give you a big thank you for coming on, being transparent, really talking about the SSA cases and what's going on there, the big Conn, and then what happened with Sabrina, and what's really continuing to shed a huge spotlight on Letcher County with what's happening there. So thank you so much for joining us, Ned.
I appreciate you having me. Thanks.
You bet. We want to thank you, our listeners, our viewers. We couldn't do this without you. We want to thank again Attorney Ned Pillersdorf. He represents the underdogs, Eastern Kentucky, helping clients and helping the big picture of helping people that may be impacted on some of the case material. And so we want to thank him for joining us for 2 episodes, taking time out of his busy schedule. And we want to thank you, our viewers, our listeners. Couldn't do this without you, your support. We ask you to subscribe, like, share, and we will be with you next week on another episode of the Voices for Voices TV show and podcast. So until then, I am Justin Allen Hayes, founder and executive director of Voices for Voices, and please be a voice for you or somebody in need.